to another episode of the CIV Podcast. This is a special episode featuring your pastors, Pastor Nim and myself, Pastor Abraham.
We started?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you see, like, we're not the regular hosts. So you can tell that we're not used to the start-stop podcast thing. But it's all right. Yeah, so today we just wanted to give you a little bit of a special episode and talk about something new that's happening at church, and then talk about kind of what that means and what the direction is and why we're even heading in that direction. Because it's not something that many Adventist churches do. Like a lot of our brothers and sisters in the other churches, they're pretty frequent with life groups or small groups, but it's not something that we often do in Adventism. So I wanted to kind of just talk about that and give you a little update with what's going on. So this past this month, actually, because this episode's going to come out at the beginning of May, but this last month in April, we just kicked off something called life groups.
Yep.
Right? So tell us a little bit about like life groups. What are life groups?
Life groups are groups that meet beyond the Saturday morning. So it takes us into the week. It helps connect our members together. It helps foster friendships and community. Yeah. And it's also a good way to assimilate, first-time guests, into our community. So that's life groups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a lot of other people might know them as small groups,
yep.
Right? People often call them small groups. For us, small groups are what happens on Saturday. Mm-hmm. So that's like after our service, we have something called small groups where we kind of discover different topics or Bible studies, or for Adventists, kind of follow the Adventist quarterly. Quite a few groups do that. But life groups, what we're hoping for is, like you said, something that happens outside of that Sabbath service. That's right.
That's right.
And we started with quite a few. Like we're just running a trial. We're just kind of seeing how it goes. And maybe just like, I guess just on that note for church leadership wise, why is it important to do like a trial in the first place? Like, why wouldn't we just, hey, life groups is a great idea. We see it works in other places. We could see it's beneficial for our community. Why, kind of give us some insight into why we would even do a trial? Because we're not, like, at least at the moment, we're not planning on doing life groups fully run to like 2025, right? That's next year.
Yep.
So we're like 4 months in, right? Almost 5 months into the year, but we're running a trial. Why would we do a trial?
Trial is good because every church has its own life cycle. Every church has its own culture and rhythm. So for us, it's just running a trial and kind of hoping to pick up any kinks or chinks in the armor that we think we need to tweak, that we can do better, especially when it comes to, child protection and things like that. We want to make sure that when we launch our groups that we cover those important things, insurances, but then also just make sure that we catch the rhythm of our church, that we're not just trying to take something that's working at another church and then just putting it into our church. We want to make sure it fits our culture, our rhythm. So that's why the trial is important. And then trial also, once we figure those things out, then we know what to train for the rest of this year before we launch in 2025.
Cool. Yeah, very cool. Because that's that opportunity to, I think that's the big one, is like ironing out some of the kinks, right?
Yep.
Because I know I've made this mistake in the past where you just kind of run something. You're like, this is a great idea, let's do it. And then you hit like 15 different roadblocks because you've never really tried it or implemented it or really foresaw some of the things that have happened. So I think a trial period is cool, because then, like you said, if it doesn't really fit within the culture and the rhythm of the church, then there's really no commitment beyond that, right? Because you knew that you were just entering a period of like, let's just test it out, test the waters, right? And we've got 10 groups.
It's good.
That are happening this trial. Yeah,
right. It's amazing.
And they vary in like their interests.
Yes.
We got like hiking groups. We just had today like Pilates for prime timers.
That's right. Our seniors.
Our seniors, so like 60 plus. And it was cool to like see them coming out.
Man, they were really excited. They were happy that they have their life group for them.
Yeah.
So it was good to see their smiling faces when they pulled up to church.
Yeah. And then we've got like a music group, like vocal training, music training for teens.
That's right. Yep.
You and I, we're running a life
Mondays.
Yeah, Max Out Mondays. Shout out to the guys.
Yes.
That coming out 6 a.m. Monday mornings, work out at the gym together. And then Alyssa and I, we're doing like a board game life group that we just love playing board games and coming around our house and doing that kind of stuff, which is really cool because you get to serve rather in your area of interest.
That's right.
Right. We talked about that. You and I, like, why is it important that we're doing this in the first place? Like, how does this dynamic change? Because I know in Adventism, we're used to like Sabbath school groups, right? Where people kind of come together either before the service or in our case, after the service, and they're reading a lesson together or they're studying the Bible. But what's unique about life groups, and then why is it so key or important to the growth of a church?
I think with the style of groups that we're doing, where you got 3 different types of groups, biblical, recreational, and relational, it enables us to engage more gifting in our church. So a lot of times within Adventist culture, it's evangelism, it's your normal prophecy or Bible studies.
Yeah.
But then you have a large portion of your church that's not engaged in mission. So the way that we're structured our life groups, we can tap into people who have like fitness, interests, sewing interests, and then they can learn how to have people within their home, within their interests. And then as we train them, we can teach them how to be missionary within those interests. So, for Adventism, we're very big on, total membership involvement. And so the style of life groups that we're doing is to try to engage the majority of our membership in mission through their interests. And that's why we like the way that we've set it up.
Yeah. That's really cool. I love that because what we can see, and this is not always the case, but what we can see within church systems and even just within Adventism too, we can see that there can often be a separation between what we would call like the sacred and the secular. Yep. Right? Where we kind of compartmentalize our spiritual life, like our church experience, our worship, what we do in our Bible study from the rest of our lives. And so a lot of us live these like fragmented lives. Yeah. Where like the kind of connections I make on Saturday are not really touching in what I'm doing on the week.
That's right.
Right? Or how I'm working or how I am spending my free time or my days off or whatever. And so I love that we get to blend. I don't even want to say blend because it implies that there's like a separation.
Yeah.
Right?
It's kind of like the Great Commission. We in our Adventist culture, it's like going overseas or going to a third world country, but the Great Commission can begin in your home, with your interests. Yeah. And so I think, when the Great Commission begins in your home or at the end of your table, that's a lot more powerful because you can involve a lot more members that come to your church and not just those that are passionate about Bible study or, leading that type of group. While they're important, we want to be able to have more of our memberships engaged in mission. So that's why I love the way that it's structured at the moment. So
yeah, because again, like in Adventism, we're so keen, and I think this is not just Adventism, but this is like churches in general are so keen on separating the sacred from the secular so that the sacred doesn't influence the sacred doesn't influence the sacred, right? Like we want to make sure that what we're doing in worship and how we're leading in the Bible and our worldviews are influenced primarily first by God and the Bible, Jesus, the revelation of the Word, rather than letting the world influence that. Yeah. But we sometimes have so compartmentalized and so separated that the opposite is also true, where we've kept the sacred from the secular.
That's right.
Right? So that our workplaces, our homes even, our marriages, our schools are not being influenced by the worldview that we're cultivating on that 1 hour period or 2 hour period on the weekends, right? And so I'm just like, I love this conversation, this topic specifically, because I'm kind of the person that like, I see it as it's all integrated. Yeah. Right. I know you're very similar where there is no separation between sacred and secular. That's right. Everything needs to be holy.
Everything's holy, and that's the only way we can be salt and light is to be in that part of the world, and to hopefully that we influence it and not the world influence us.
Yes.
So that's what I love about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And because I wouldn't bring my board games to church necessarily and come playing in the middle of the service, right?
For Sabbath school
or something like that. But I love that I get to have genuine connections and, establish these like beautiful relationships with people around, even if it's competition, even if I lose or I win or whatever, it doesn't matter, right? It's the relationship that's being built around the game that we're playing.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's so important for us to understand, kind of as members of church, that what we do is not meant to be like you were talking about when you preached on Matthew chapter 5 and being the salt and light of the world. It's not meant to be secret.
Yep.
Right? Like, I love that you said, like, we're not secret agents for Jesus. There's nothing secretive about our discipleship.
Yeah.
But when we are not allowing that sacred to influence our secular, then really we do become secret agents almost, in the sense where we're like covert Christians that, I kind of sneak into the church in the backside and I'm worshiping and then I'm coming out to the rest of the world. Because there's like, I just learned the number today, but there's like 168 hours in the week.
Yeah.
Right. And so if the 2 hours of our week is our only connection with God, and the only time we're thinking about mission, the only time we're thinking about the gospel, the only time we're thinking about discipleship, then I can't remember what the exact percentage is, but it's like somewhere near less than 10% or something like that of our week. Yeah, much less than 10. That's what it is, like 1% or something like that, right?
Yeah, it's crazy because I remember I was visiting members at their workplaces. And so while I was waiting, they would say, oh, who should I say is waiting? And I would say, oh, I'm their pastor. And they'll be like, John's a Christian? And I'll be like, huh? Yeah. Oh. And then the surprise, and that would happen often.
Yeah.
And so I thought, hold on, what's happening here?
Yeah.
These are our members who go to their workplaces and no one knows that they're a Christian. So rather than judging them, I was trying to understand it. And so what I learned was that all they knew was to invite somebody to church or invite somebody to a Bible study. And a lot of them didn't have that skill set, and a lot of them didn't have that passion. And so once we were able to do life groups within their interests, now they had somewhere to invite their work colleagues to something that belonged to the church. So it was a lot easier for them to say, hey, would you come and join my life group where we play board games? And they explained it to their work colleague. And now it was easy for them to say, I'm a Christian, through something that wasn't as daunting as inviting them to church. So that's how it kind of came about for me. And that's how I thought about all these secret agents that are out there who are at their workplace and no one knows they're Christian.
Yeah.
But it's not because they're afraid of it. I've just learned that they just didn't know how to begin the conversation or where to invite them instead of church. And life groups was a good way for them to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I like that you said that, like, it's not that they're necessarily ashamed or scared of it. It's just that they, like, how else, especially if we haven't been taught or developed or modeled, like if we haven't seen it ourselves, how do we get to that place? Because church is a big step.
Oh, yeah.
Like a Bible study is a big step to get to, right? Like you kind of already have to be in that space of like seeking God.
Yep.
And I think we often forget how strange church is to someone who has never gone through those motions.
Yeah.
Like sit up, stand down, close your eyes,
when
prayer,
to do it.
When to do it.
You know, if no one tells them, they got their eyes open, everyone's got their eyes closed, they're like, oh, okay. You know,
It
can be really weird.
Yeah. Like even for us with our like in-house language, like even just the word Sabbath.
Yep.
Right. Like now I think within just this current, like the last 5 years, I think that word's been more popularized in general because people are really keying into the whole idea of rest and sabbatical and having a Sabbath. But, you know, for like decades, we were always like, happy Sabbath. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody was telling me, it's like a while ago that, because all they knew about our church was like, oh, they promote like vegetarian lifestyle. Yeah, yeah. And then when they came to church a while, and their conclusion was, man, they really love their vegetarianism, because we kept saying happy salad, happy salad.
That's good.
Right? And he's like, what is this word that people are using? And it's so easy to like have these, like this in-house language that we're accustomed to, we're used to. And so it feels normal to us. But for someone that comes from outside of that and doesn't really experience that on a regular basis or have experienced that at all, like it's jarring.
Yeah.
But coming over to my house to play Uno, right? Like that's not as jarring.
It's not as jarring.
Right?
It's normal.
It's much easier. It's normal.
Yeah.
Right? Which is really cool to be able to kind of break some of those barriers and some of those boundaries.
Yeah.
To come and do life groups, right?
Because they've been in many homes.
Yeah.
But they may not have been in many churches.
Yes.
So going into another home is, they understand the protocol. They understand the way they need to behave and how to be courteous. But in church, what do I wear? You know, what do I say? How do I behave? It's a whole new world for some people, you know, so it can be really strange for them. But going to someone's house is less threatening, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I don't know, but this just came to my thought right now. There are more stories of Jesus sitting and eating with people than there are stories of him in synagogue. You know what I...
Facts.
Right?
Like, he goes from table to table, you know, and then he is criticized. You know, that was one of the grievances against him, that he ate and, you know, drank with sinners. And he was called a drunkard and a glutton, you know, so... Because that's what he liked to do. That's how he reached people. So
yeah,
we could learn from that.
Yeah, to sit at tables with people.
Yeah.
I love... have you ever seen the show Somebody Feed Phil?
No.
That's on Netflix. I love it.
Cooking show?
It kind of. So it's a food show more than it is a cooking show.
Okay.
He's the writer for the show Everybody Loves Raymond.
Okay, yeah. I know that show. Yeah.
You know that show. Yeah. So a lot of the characters are based on his family.
Oh, wow.
So, like, the old man in, like, Raymond's dad is based on his dad, right? So he's written all these characters, like, based on his family members and stuff. And he created the show and wrote the show. And he's just, like, really bubbly, energetic, like, quirky, fun guy. And I think there's an 8th season just came out. We're not sponsored by Netflix.
No, we're not
Netflix at all, or the show. I love the show. But it's on Netflix. And what he does is he just, like, goes around to different parts of the world and goes to restaurants and tries, like, these cool things. And he meets with like chefs and sometimes celebrities, and they go to different places and eat. But it's his down to earthness that really makes the show really fun. That he's just like super quirky, fun guy, and like he just the way that, I don't know. That's like when you see him eating something, you feel like it looks like it's like the best thing in the world. Not just because of the food, but like the way he relates to it and expresses it, and like his facial expressions and the way that he connects and communicates. Like you kind of get the sense like you're the most important person in the world sitting next to him, right? Wow. Like he makes you feel that way, which is really cool. It's super fun, super funny. But the whole reason I'm even bringing this up was because he said something. I remember, I can't remember what season it was, but he said something, and I had to pull out my phone and write it down, and I have it in my quotes. But he said, if you can open a mouth, you can open a mind.
That's so good, man.
Yeah.
That's so good.
If you can open a mouth, you can open a mind.
Yeah.
And I think like it resonated with me so much because I love to eat.
So do I.
Right? Like we love to eat. Like if you don't know this about us, like Nim and I, like we love to try new places.
Yep.
And we will often, like if we see reels on our phone of like a place in Vancouver that like looks like serves good food, we'll send it to each other.
We've got to try it out.
Right? And we're like, yo, we got to go to this place. But I love not just like eating food, but I love serving people food specifically. Like I love cooking for people and having people over at our house. It is like I don't know, for me, like I think it's just a cultural thing. Like I know your culture is very similar. Like for me, it is the greatest joy to be able to like feed someone and like supply for their needs.
Yeah.
And sit around their table or our table and like share in like good conversation. And when he said that, if you open a mouth, you can open a mind, I thought, how true is that, right? To sit like with someone and just eat and have your needs met. Yeah. And I think there's a level of barriers that get torn down when we're in that space of like eating and vulnerability and talking. And it doesn't even have to go deep, but there's just something special that happens around the table that doesn't always happen in a pew.
That's right.
Or in a row or in a chair.
Yep.
Right? So
Yeah, and there's so many opportunities. I was saying that on the weekend. Like if you're eating 3 times a day,
Yes.
7 days a week, that's 21 opportunities to invite somebody to your table.
Yeah.
And so, eating. I love that quote. If you can open the mouth, you can open the mind. That's so good. It's so true. Great Commission can start at the end of your table.
Yeah.
And that's what Jesus did. Table fellowship. That's how he traveled. So.
Yeah. And, like my mind keeps racing with like these connection points. So I'm going to have to ask you the question. We're, as a staff, like every Tuesday we meet and we spend time like discussing work and whatever. But first and foremost, we read the Bible.
Yeah.
Like we do devotion together. Right. And we're reading through the book of Leviticus. Yeah. Right. And I think we're on chapter 9 or 10. We're going to chapter 10.
Yeah, going 10 this week.
Yeah, 10 this week. But one of the offerings is the fellowship offering. Tell us a bit about like the fellowship offering. Like what does that entail?
Well, that was the only one from memory where it's the offering and then you get to eat with the person. Yeah. Which was special and unique, and it really caught our attention.
Yes. Yeah. So like as the offerer who brings the offering, normally in the offering system, the priest will eat it and consume a part of the offering.
Or get some to take with them.
Or get some to take with them, but the offerer leaves the offering, right? Usually if it's a sin offering or a thank offering or burnt offering, but the fellowship offering, the meal offering, was one that the person who brought the offering could actually sit and eat the food itself, right? And what is that like an allusion to? What does that represent?
I can't remember. Are we alluding to table fellowship? Are we alluding to the New Testament? Are we alluding to Matthew 5 where you come to bring your offering, at the temple? And if you remember that there's something that you've got wrong with somebody, that you leave your sacrifice because it's more important to go and make right with your brother or your sister, and then come back and then go through. Yeah. So that you have right fellowship with your fellow person, so that you can have right fellowship with God. Yeah. So there was a few things where my mind was racing to. When we read it. Yeah. Which is cool because
it is this, like, it's exactly that, right? It's having right fellowship. Yeah. And the nature of the offerings is that we are not in right fellowship with God because of sin. Yeah. And therefore the offerings help us to, that's what the word atonement means, is at one meant. Yeah. Right? To be made at one again with God. Yep. That sin, the sin has separated. And the fellowship offering is that celebration of being made at one with God. It is like, again, it is that we're not right. Yep. So let's come and let's have this offering where, like, God and I sit down and eat together. Yep. And the priest comes and sits down and eats together. And it's again, like you said, it's the only one where the offerer actually gets to eat themselves. And it's not just like him and the priest eating. It actually represents like God eating at this table with the offerer, so that the offerer knows I'm being made right with God at the table where I'm sharing a meal with the God of the universe.
I mean, it's so good. There's so many illusions, that can go to, you can jump all the way to, the heavenly banquet. Yes, at the end. At the end, that we get to sit at a table, banquet with God. Like this, it was rich when we got to that part. Leviticus.
I know, right? And you don't normally think of that, like Leviticus to be this, at least most people don't, like they're just skipping over, it's just, and then Aaron took the fat of the calf, and he separated the liver, but
cut this, broke that,
right, but
splash blood,
he takes the thumb and then he puts blood on his earlobe, right, on his big toe, right, it's like weird, and it's so removed from our context that it feels weird, but there is this like beautiful connection, not just with the offerings itself, but with what it would represent in Christ later on. Like you said, like the feast of the wedding at the end with Revelation. We might even connect it to like the Lord's Supper, right? Where God incarnate is fellowshipping with us and is giving us of his body and his blood. And I think where I'm going with this in regards to life group is, again, it's that idea of God does not just ask us to come to like his temple and worship. God wants to have fellowship with us in every portion of our lives. You know, not just at the temple. He wants to be with us in the workplace. You know, that's what the Shema is, right? And you're coming, and then you're going, and you're standing, and you're walking, and you're sitting, and you're sleeping, right? When you go in and when you come out, and that's what God is wanting to do with us, is to be with us, and at every point of every hour, of every minute, of every second, of every day.
Absolutely.
So that it's not just like this, hey, God, good to see you for 2 hours. Bye. See you later, right? But it's this wholly integrated relationship where we get to do life in the presence of God. And then the beautiful thing is we then get to invite others
to the table. To that table.
Yeah. To have that encounter with Jesus.
Absolutely. In the hope that they will enter into a saving relationship.
Absolutely.
You know, through the table, through our invitation to accept Christ's invitation.
Yeah.
You know, it's a beautiful thing.
So life groups are not just, I mean, they are fun, but it's not just fun.
No, it's not just fun. You know, eternity matters.
Yes.
You know, and we want to do everything possible to create spaces and atmosphere where people can be around Christians, you know, faith and people that are followers of Christ, in the hope that they just love who we are. They see us as genuine in our life groups. And then hopefully one day they ask, hey, what's this Jesus about?
Yeah.
You know, what's your faith about? And that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
You know, but we lead through friendship, you know, first and foremost, and seek their well-being, and then hope they ask us about our faith. So, yeah,
that's so cool. I'm thinking, because we're talking a lot about what it does for others. Like, we're seeing this is like this evangelistic component to life groups that create a safe and comfortable soft launch, we could call it, or like a soft launch into relationship with Jesus, right? Where people can kind of comfortably come into easier spaces than just church or a Bible study. But maybe for someone that's listening that, you know, is a member and has never been part of a life group, and maybe they're just kind of like still hesitant, right? Like they're in that space of, well, I just don't know how to do it, or I don't know how to start it, or I'm just kind of like, I don't know how to connect with those people that you know, all my friends are Christian, whatever. What benefit would someone get as a member in joining a life group? That's the first one. Then the second part, what benefit would they get in leading a life group? Like, why should I be involved in doing that?
Well, I think the benefit if you join a life group is that you get to forge relationships, you get to build community, you'll meet somebody new. And the power in meeting somebody new, whether they're a first-time guest in your group or whether it's a long-term member, is that person you meet for the first time, the next Saturday you come to church, you get to meet them, but you get to say hello and call them by their name. Yeah. Because that's the power of life groups. And if you were to lead a life group, you know, the power, if you're kind of skeptical or you're unsure whether to lead one, that's why this is a trial, because the rest of the year after the trial, we're going to be equipping our members for leading. So, you know, those who were that held back this time for the trial, come to the training. You know, we're going to equip you. We're going to give you the skill sets that you need to be able to lead a group so that you can lead with confidence. So, and if you're leading one, you get to have front row seats to the glory of God at work in the lives of those that he entrusts to your life group. And you just never know. There could be somebody in your group that meets Christ for the first time. So nothing could be greater than for you, a member, to go through that experience. Yeah. So that's why I would want all of them to use their giftedness, their interests, to be able to lead a life group and be used by God. Yeah. That's cool. Because we all have different gifting. Yeah. And so not everybody is called to be a preacher or an evangelist or like a leader of a Bible study. Yeah. But all of us have interests and all of us love something. Yeah. Right? That we can invite other people into. Absolutely. To do that. And that's no less evangelism. That's no less preaching than the more obvious outward things. Absolutely. Because I think it was you were saying
we're talking about like one. We're talking about because we're talking about it with children development. That one life. What was the thing? Like one family. It was a quote by Ellen White. I think you were talking about.
Oh yeah. So Ellen White has a lot of quotes about the family.
Yeah, just a ton of great quotes.
But the one that I used for that staff meeting was, "One well-ordered, well-disciplined family speaks more than all the sermons that can be preached." And then she also says that the first work of the church begins in the home. So she has a lot to say about family, and the work of the church begins first and foremost in our homes. And so if you think about it, at creation, the first institution was not the church.
Yeah.
It was the family. So the family is key to all of this. That's why the home is powerful than the church building. But we know the church building is not that important to God, because we are the church.
Yes.
Wherever we go.
Yeah.
It's wherever we are. That's where the Spirit is. So,
yeah, and I was thinking about that right now in the context of life groups, because I love that comparison where she says one well-ordered, well-disciplined family is better than like all the preaching in the world. Yeah, right. Because we often, if we have, like, we all have our favorite preachers, we all have people that we resonate with, just the way that they communicate or the way that they speak or whatever. And I know that growing up too, I had the same, where like, oh, I know someone's preaching, like that's when I want to bring my friend, right, to hear that sermon. But if the home is so much more valuable than all the preaching, then that's where, for me, like, it puts the onus on us as individual people and just human beings as part of a community that don't have to rely on one touch point throughout the week.
That's right.
But rather we can be the touch point for someone else's week, right? Where when they interact with us, when they enter our life group space, or when we go out and we play sports together, or we're at work together, or we grab lunch together, when we do that, we are, for that person, an intersection of heaven and earth.
Yep.
Where we get to represent the kingdom and represent Jesus here to someone that may not know him, or may have a misconception of him, or see him differently in that respect. And I really love life groups. Like, I cannot say enough about them.
I mean, what about the Expo?
The Expo was so good.
It was so fun, man. Like, I got lost in the eyes and the smiles of people.
Yes.
I forgot to get people to sign, So I had to get myself, I had to snap out of it. I keep telling myself, hey, focus, get them to sign up. So once our group was filled, I was able just to enjoy watching people smile, the interactions. It was such a good feeling.
I know, because I talked to a lot of people afterwards. And they were just raving about it. And it wasn't even just the groups or the interests. Like, everybody was excited about what was going on with, like, what was going to be happening in the life groups. But so many people were just commenting on, like, the air, the vibe, like the presence. They're like, it felt different at church to, like, sit there and see these people that were willing to open themselves up and share their hobbies, share their interests with almost like 160 people that signed up across our life groups.
That's so good.
Right, on a trial, on our first time. All right, and we had a quick turnaround, because like that Saturday, some people signed up, and that literally the next day, less than 24 hours later, some groups were meeting. Right.
Shout out to all our life group leaders.
Yes, thank you.
We love you.
And to all those that came for the very first one. Right, like, who just decided, who may not have known about it, showed up at church and like, that's a group I want to come to, and then in 24 hours later, they're like, yeah, I'm at that place. I'm back again. So that's really cool to see that happening. And then the next question that I wanted to ask, because we kind of go through, okay, this is a place for us to be able to bring unchurched friends or people that may not ever really step foot into a church, but can encounter the body of the church right outside of the walls of the church. And we talked about, the benefits of being in a life group, and then leading a life group. What would we say, or what would you say to the people? Because I've encountered a lot of them just across life, that are people like, you know what, like, I like church, but I like to just do my own thing with God. Like, I like to just sit at home and have my personal relationship with God, or I love to
secret agent, eh?
Sorry,
they're secret agents.
Secret agents.
They're on a secret mission for the Lord. There's no such thing.
I can't get over that idea. These secret agents for the Lord.
I don't tell anyone I'm a Christian, because I don't want my faith to offend anybody.
Yeah.
We shouldn't offend people.
Of course.
You shouldn't be ashamed of your faith.
Yeah. You don't have to be obnoxious.
No. Even a vegetarian can be a pig.
Yeah.
We don't need to be that way. So.
Absolutely right. But yeah, like I was saying, I've met so many people that, again, they're just like, church isn't for me. I like to do my own thing with God. And these are not people that are like new to faith. These are not people that are like just discovering it and have been frustrated with church. Like these are people that have like grown up with it and just don't see like the point of it, or they're just like, you know what? No, it's just me and God. And that's it. Like, what would you say to someone that's kind of in that thought process or in that, camp that says, you know what? I don't want to do with you people or any people really. I just want to do me and God, just me and God.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I'll first say I can understand it to a point, especially if there's legitimate hurt, that they don't want to come to church because they're hurting and they're angry for whatever reason. I can understand that. But when you read scripture, when we're baptized, we're not baptized into just God alone.
Yeah.
We're baptized into a community of faith as well. Ephesians 4 talks that we're baptized into a body. So for us, you can't just do you and God. That's unbiblical. And then the other thing I'll say to that is what you're really saying then is that you reject Christ's bride. That you just want to do you and God. So you'll say, I'll have Jesus, but I won't have your bride, because the bride, is the church. So to say you don't want to do church, you just want to do you and God, well then, hey, Jesus, I love you, but I don't want your bride. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Like, the two are intertwined. So when you come to faith, it's not just a private thing. It's between you and God, the Trinity. But then there's a body of faith that you belong to, that you're accountable to, that you help grow, that you're on mission to, mission for. And then that way, it's not something that you can just reject. So to me, I can understand the hurt, and I hope they heal from that so they can join the body. But essentially, you're rejecting Christ's bride, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Because if they rejected my bride, that's pretty offensive. Hey, Nim, I want to come to your house, but only if Renee stays in the room because I don't want to see her.
Wow.
Well, I'll be like, hey, you know what?
Don't come to my house.
Don't come to my house.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what they're saying,
Wow. Yeah, that's a perfect analogy. Because even as you were saying that, like in my head, I was like, yeah, like, okay, that's strong, rejecting Christ's bride. But we can make it such a spiritual idea, the bride of Christ, the church of Christ, right? Without really personifying it. But when you said that, like, hey, I want to come to your house, but Renee's got to stay in the room. I don't want her to be at home. Like, yeah, that would be offensive to me as a husband.
Yeah.
Right? If someone like came to me, it's like, hey, like I love you, Abraham, but I hate your wife and I just want to hang out with you. I'd be like, hey, dude, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I don't want to hang out with you. Right?
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It just wouldn't sit well with me.
No.
So, and that's what we're saying to Christ when you don't want to be a part of the church. And the bride of Christ is not perfect.
Of course.
Right. It is imperfect. And that's why we have a perfect, Christ.
Yeah.
That washes us, to make us clean, that makes us have right standing with God.
Yeah.
And he loves his bride so much that he died for it.
Yes.
And then you're going to say to him, I reject your bride?
Yeah.
Come on now.
No.
You can't do that.
No, that's crazy. Like, we're, like, us even as pastors, like, we're broken people.
Yeah.
We're sinners. Mm-hmm. Our wives are saints. They're perfect. They don't have...
Don't open up their eyes, Lord.
To see us for who we really are.
They might leave us.
Yeah. That's a perfect response. That to reject, to want Jesus but not want the church is to reject the bride.
Yeah.
That's powerful. And part of Well, because I was actually having this conversation today with a grade 12 class. So I like going into schools, and we often talk about faith and spirituality. And that was kind of one of the questions that...
Shout out to Ron Maitland.
Yeah, to Ron Maitland, who lets me come in to his class, to his grade 12 classes. And we were talking about that, and we were talking about doing life in community. Mm-hmm. And, that conversation came up was like, do I have to go to church to be a Christian? Mm-hmm. Like, do I have to be a part? Do I have to... Because the question specifically, if I remember correctly, was, hey, like, if I'm sold out for Jesus, does that mean that I have to be involved in the church? Mm-hmm. Does it mean that I have to be connected with the church? And we kind of explored that for a bit, and we kind of came to the understanding of, like, absolutely. You cannot be sold out for Jesus and, like you said, reject the bride. Yeah. Right? If we want to be a part of what Jesus is doing, mm-hmm. we have to be a part of what his body is doing. Yeah. Because it's the bride, and it's also compared to his body.
That's right.
He is the head, and then we're like, I just want the head, but I don't want the arm and the legs and
That's right.
and the eyes, and all the other parts of it and whatever. But we cannot exist in silos. Like, that's not the nature of biblical spirituality.
That's right.
This oneness with God that we attain or that we're striving for, like that solo personal relationship, is only meant to make us better for the community relationship.
That's right.
It's not the end in itself. It is meant to make us holier so that when we enter the body of Christ, we can deal with difficult people with more grace and more mercy, and we can learn to love one another. And we also talked about the Trinity. I know how you mentioned that, right? Where, that was that institution. And yeah. The Trinity is a perfect example that God did not exist in isolation.
That's right.
That he exists in the triune God, that love cannot exist if it's just one individual. That's mm-hmm. There's no love there. Yeah. Right? You need community to express love and experience love. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of why we need the church. Yeah. As broken and as messed up as it is,
crazy,
as hypocritical and frustrating, and turns your hair white, pulls out my beard,
keeps us up at night.
Stressful. I've had a twitch in my left eye for 3 weeks. I can't get rid of it.
Stab us in the heart.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
As difficult as the church is, it's still the bride of Christ.
It's still God. It is still the bride of Christ, man.
Yeah.
And, and we're blessed to serve it.
Yes.
With all its frailties and imperfections, we're called to serve it. And it's a beautiful honor. And it's something that, we cannot take lightly. I love serving. I love serving the church, and I love trying to lead it. And, with all its imperfections, there's a lot of good things that come from it.
Yeah.
Like, we cannot grow to our fuller potential on our own. Mm-hmm. It can only happen within community. Mm-hmm. A community that encourages, a community that keeps you accountable, a community that equips. So you need the body. You cannot just do it you and yourself.
Yes, totally. 100%.
Otherwise, you have to be one of those, is it monks that...
like the ascetic monks that live... Yeah.
You'll have to be one of those.
So. Even then, they're never satisfied because they keep pursuing it continually, right? There's no end to it until they die. Yeah, community is that big thing. And if you're listening, again, mm-hmm. like, we know it's broken. It's not perfect.
No.
And I know, I'm sure you're the exact same. I know one of the reasons why I'm in ministry, and even in the Adventist church itself specifically, I know that God has called me to be a force of good and a change in the world.
Yep.
And I think I talked about this when I was sitting with Ryan and Alex, that there was a lot of frustrations that I had with church and a lot of hurts that I had. But in my call to ministry and my accepting of pastoral ministry specifically, God really challenged me. Mm-hmm. And was like, if you see all of these issues and problems that you're frustrated with and you leave, then you're also part of the problem.
Yeah.
Because you're not working towards a solution. Right? And so God really challenged me to be in a place where I can try to bring resolution or bring solutions, or even if it's just like a pocket of it.
Yeah.
Even if we can't change the whole, can we create pockets of it where people can find healing and find hope
Yeah.
and not face some of the frustrations that I know that we've faced in our own personal like church experiences, right?
Yeah.
Because even as pastors, church is not always the most, it's not the safest place.
No, it's not. It's not safe sometimes. But, you know, when you read stories that Moses had to go through,
Yeah.
like, it's encouraging.
Yeah.
You know, the heart that he had for the people, he was willing to blot out his name for the people. You know, that's a challenging trait for us to have.
Yeah.
And I think also the church, by and large, wants to be used, and they want to be on mission. You know, they want to be included. So it's up to us as leaders to try to find those avenues to be able to utilize their skill set, so that not only can they belong to a community, but then we can set them forth on mission.
Yeah.
You know, and we have to try to create those pathways, and I think finding these 3 different types of life groups is a good pathway so far. It looks good so far.
Yeah.
But we're only week 1 of the trial, so we'll see what happens at the end of week 11, and where we can reflect and look and learn, so we know what we need to change before we launch it in 2025.
Yeah.
But I'm so pumped.
I cannot say enough about it.
And just to think, first-time guests
Yes.
on that Saturday
Yes.
felt so comfortable to sign up to our life groups.
Yes.
And we got 2 of them in our life group.
Yeah, we've got 2 in our life group.
In our life group, first-time guests signed up.
Yeah. And what a group to sign up to, a 6 a.m.
6 a.m.
Monday morning workout.
I know. And I was worried I was going to sleep in. You know, Sunday, before I was going to bed, I was like, you cannot sleep in. You can't, you know.
Yeah.
But what a group, you know. And we got, you know, first-time guests in other groups. And
Yep.
that speaks a lot to the power of life groups. That they could come to church for the very first time, walk out into the Expo, and put their name to a group.
Yes.
That was powerful to me. You know? I went home just singing God's praises when I saw that happen.
Yes. And just for people that like may kind of be wondering or questioning about it, like some of those first time guests, they're not extroverts, right? Like, you know, we would think what would compel you, and it's like, oh well, if you're an extrovert, you want to be at anything and everything. But it's like, no, these people are like us, like introverts that felt, like you said, so compelled, so moved to be part of something that's happening at church.
Yes.
Right, which is so awesome.
Which they signed up to, and a lot of our groups have, you know, multi generations.
Yes.
Like even ours.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a young adult right up to our senior members that are in our group, and we get to interact in our life groups with those different generations, which can only strengthen, you know, our walk with God, being a part of that group, you know, to be able to learn from those that are older than us, and to be able to learn from those that are younger than us. Yeah. So it's such a good thing, you know. Yeah. And hopefully we put on a bit of muscle.
Yeah, instead of the other thing we've been putting on. Because we talked about wanting to eat a lot. Yeah. It is good, like the accountability to it, right? Yeah. Especially for the gym, but then I think with anything else, right? Like with any other life group, there is that accountability that it's like, oh, I saw you last week and I get to see you again. And then we get to see you at church too. It's like that extra touch point.
I'm so looking forward to church.
Oh my gosh. Like we haven't. So this, we're recording this and we haven't come to church yet since the launch. Yeah. But I am pumped to see
hoping
people.
To see our men, you know, that are in our group, and I know others are looking forward to see the new people they met in their life group. So I am so looking forward to it.
I know it's going to be different. Yeah, it's going to be so good. But yeah, I think as we're kind of wrapping up, you know, I want to encourage you, if you're watching, if you're listening, like the next time we're up at life groups and we're promoting it and doing it, like join a life group at the very least. Yeah, and then, you know, just challenge you to like start a life group. Yeah, absolutely. Do something. Whatever your interest is, you like to sew, you like to crochet, you want to, I was talking to another young adult that wants to just bake cookies right? And it's like, yes, do it.
There should be a pastoral tax.
Yeah. You got 10% of your cookies have to come to
Any cooking group has a pastoral tax.
Yeah, you drop it off at the church, and then we'll taste it and check it out, just to make sure everything the life group is good, right? We want to have quality control.
That's right.
Life groups.
That's right.
Yeah. So if you're thinking about it, start one. We really want to encourage you, and then if you are in life groups now and you're going through it, hopefully you have a positive experience. But if you do, especially, encourage others.
Absolutely.
Share with them your experience and kind of how that changed your life and where you grew and how you met friends. And hopefully we can kind of create that community that exists outside of just the Sabbath hours, outside of our service hours.
Yes.
So that we're integrated into more than just a 2-hour window.
Yeah.
Because I keep talking about that. It's so key for me. We have to be integrated in more than just that 2-hour window on one day of the weekend.
That's right.
Right. So we're excited about life groups.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can't wait to see what God's going to do through them, even just through our trial.
Yes.
And then once we launch in 2025, I think it's just going to take off.
Man, we're hoping. We're hoping. But the trial it's got me so amped.
I know.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm confident. Maybe this is just, me, but I am confident. And then again, it's not because we've done anything great. I'm confident the Spirit's going to move.
Yeah. I'm
confident that God is going to do something in a way that perhaps we haven't experienced before. Yeah. And that we're going to see real, if we don't see at least the results of it right away, we're going to see the seeds of life change planted through our trial, through 2025 life groups. And we cannot wait for you, the listener, the watcher, to be a part
absolutely
of what God is doing in our community, in our church, and in the kingdom.
Yeah.
So,
and you're never too old.
Yeah, you're never too old.
To lead a life group, and you're never too young.
Yep.
One of our youth, Luke, he's running pickleball.
Yeah.
So you're never too young, you're never too old.
Yeah.
So whatever interests you have, please, speak to us. Yeah. We'll love to keep an eye on the training.
Yes.
Because that's important, so that we can help you prepare so you can lead with confidence in 2025.
Awesome. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. So that's what we wanted to talk to you about today, and kind of hopefully inspire you to, at the very least, do more in community.
Yes.
And engage with the bride of Christ. And we will see you next time. We might not be here for the next episode you listen to, but the podcast will see you next time. And remember, don't forget to love God. That's where you say love people.
Love people. We're bringing back Ryan and Alex.
Yeah. The comments are going to be all over the place. Bring back the other hosts.
Bring back the professionals.
Yeah, let's do it one more. We'll do it again. Don't forget to love God,
love people,
and serve the world. See you later.